You weren't supposed to lose the ability to sit still for 10 minutes. But now, most people can't eat without watching something, can't work without checking their phone, can't relax without stimulation. And some people can't even fall asleep without background noise constantly hitting their brain. The scary part is, this doesn't feel extreme anymore. It feels normal. If your attention span feels destroyed, your motivation randomly disappears, and even simple tasks feel mentally heavy, while your brain somehow still has energy to scroll for 2 hours straight. This video is probably about you. And no, it's not because you're lazy. Your brain has slowly been trained to expect non-stop stimulation. Short videos, notifications, endless entertainment, fast novelty, instant rewards, constant dopamine spikes all day long, and after enough repetition, normal life starts feeling emotionally flat by comparison. Reading feels slow, work feels boring, silence feels uncomfortable. Even rest stops feeling restful because your brain no longer knows how to exist without stimulation. And here's the part most people completely misunderstand. Dopamine itself is not bad. Without dopamine, you wouldn't pursue goals, exercise, build relationships, or even get out of bed consistently. Dopamine helps drive motivation, learning, anticipation, and reward-seeking behavior. The problem is not dopamine. The problem is artificial dopamine overload. Your brain evolved in a world where rewards were slower and connected to effort. People moved their bodies, solved problems, talked face-to-face, learned skills, built things, and worked for rewards over time. Now your brain can get stimulation instantly. One swipe gives novelty. One notification gives social validation. One click gives entertainment. One app gives endless unpredictability. And your brain becomes addicted to unpredictability. People think social media is addictive because it's entertaining. That's only part of it. The real hook is variable reward. Your brain never knows when the next interesting thing is coming, so it keeps checking again and again. It's basically a slot machine in your pocket, and after enough repetition, your brain's reward threshold changes. Think about strawberries. If you stop eating processed sugar for a month, strawberries suddenly taste incredibly sweet. But if you drink soda every day, strawberries feel almost bland. Your brain works the same way with stimulation. When your baseline dopamine exposure becomes extremely high, ordinary life loses psychological contrast. Deep work feels painful. Conversations feel less engaging. Exercise feels mentally harder. Quiet moments start feeling uncomfortable, not because those things became worse, because your brain became overstimulated, and this creates one of the strangest modern problems. You feel mentally exhausted, while barely doing anything meaningful, because stimulation and fulfillment are not the same thing. That's why someone can spend 6 hours online and still feel empty afterward. Their brain was constantly stimulated, but never deeply satisfied. Huge difference. And if you don't understand that difference, your attention slowly starts getting hijacked without you even noticing it. One of the biggest hidden costs of overstimulation is attention fragmentation. Your brain stops fully engaging with anything. You half watch videos, half read articles, half listen to people, half work, half think. Your attention becomes shallow. And shallow attention creates shallow satisfaction. That's why binge consumption often leaves people feeling strangely empty afterward. Their brain consumed massive amounts of stimulation, but processed almost nothing deeply. There's a difference between being occupied and being mentally engaged, and honestly, most people live in constant mental occupation now. Every notification pulls attention away. Every tab switch leaves cognitive residue behind. Every urge to check your phone interrupts focus before your brain fully settles into deeper thinking. That scattered feeling adds up. Eventually, people feel mentally overloaded despite accomplishing very little. They feel busy all day, but emotionally dissatisfied at night because their attention was consumed instead of invested. And this is where most dopamine detox advice completely fails. People try to quit overstimulation using motivation alone. That almost never works long term, because environment usually beats willpower. If your phone is always next to you, if every app is designed to steal your attention, if your room constantly encourages distraction, if boredom immediately triggers stimulation seeking, then your brain is fighting a neurological battle every single day. And people blame themselves for losing. But behavior is heavily shaped by accessibility. The easier something is to access, the more often you'll do it automatically. That's why one of the smartest dopamine detox strategies is not self-control. It's friction. Delete apps, turn off autoplay, use grayscale mode, log out of addictive platforms, keep your phone outside your bedroom. Create physical distance between yourself and distractions. Tiny environmental changes create surprisingly large behavioral effects over time, because habits are often less about character and more about repeated cue exposure. And here's another thing modern culture gets completely wrong. People treat boredom like an emergency, but boredom used to be normal. In fact, boredom often becomes the bridge to creativity, reflection, deeper thinking, and problem solving. Your brain needs empty space sometimes. Not every second needs input. Some of your best thoughts happen after stimulation stops. That's why people randomly get insights during showers, walks, or quiet moments. Their brain finally has room to process. But if your mind is constantly flooded with content, your thoughts never fully develop. You slowly become a consumer of endless inputs instead of someone who can think clearly. And that's one of the hidden psychological benefits of a dopamine reset. Your internal voice becomes louder again. At first, that can feel uncomfortable, because many people don't realize how often stimulation became emotional avoidance. Sometimes the phone isn't entertainment, it's escape. Escape from stress, escape from uncertainty, escape from loneliness, escape from silence, escape from uncomfortable thoughts. And when stimulation disappears, some of that buried mental noise finally surfaces again. That's uncomfortable in the beginning, but it's also where real mental clarity starts. The biggest mistake people make during a dopamine detox is trying to change everything overnight. That usually fails fast. Your brain hates sudden extremes. If you go from nonstop stimulation to complete restriction instantly, your brain often rebels harder. Cravings increase, motivation crashes, focus feels impossible, and most people quit right there because they think the detox isn't working. Actually, that phase often means it is working. Your brain is adjusting to lower novelty exposure. You're finally noticing dependency patterns that used to feel invisible. That's why a real dopamine detox should not feel like punishment. It should feel like gradual rewiring. The first step is awareness. Most people don't even realize how often they seek stimulation automatically. Unlocking their phone without purpose, opening apps during tiny moments of discomfort, watching videos while eating, switching tabs every few minutes. Awareness changes behavior faster than guilt does. Because once you clearly see the pattern, some habits begin feeling disturbingly automatic. And that realization matters psychologically. During the first week, the goal is simple. Lower the noise, not eliminate pleasure. Reduce overload. And for most people, the biggest attention destroyer is short-form content. TikTok, Reels, Shorts, infinite scrolling. These platforms train rapid attention switching harder than almost anything else. Your brain processes endless novelty changes every few seconds, and after enough repetition, longer tasks start feeling emotionally flat by comparison. That's why deep work suddenly feels painful to modern brains. So during week 1, reduce short-form content aggressively, not slightly less. Aggressively. Then start rebuilding boredom tolerance. Eat without videos sometimes. Walk without headphones sometimes. Sit quietly without instantly grabbing your phone. That sounds small, but it's neurologically important because people who tolerate mental discomfort longer usually perform better at focused tasks. Then, around week 2, something interesting starts happening. At first, life may actually feel more boring. Simple tasks feel slower. Cravings increase. Your brain keeps searching for stimulation constantly. That's normal. Your nervous system is adapting. This is also where many people accidentally replace one addiction with another. They quit social media and suddenly binge YouTube for 6 hours. Or obsessively check productivity apps. Or constantly consume podcasts every waking moment. The brain often doesn't care what the stimulation source is. It just wants stimulation. So ask yourself this honestly. Am I actually resting my brain, or just changing the flavor of distraction? That question exposes a lot, because the real goal of a dopamine detox is not removing enjoyment from life. It's restoring sensitivity. You're trying to make normal life feel rewarding again. You're rebuilding your ability to focus voluntarily instead of reacting automatically every few seconds. And that ability is becoming extremely rare now. Around week 3, most people notice the first major shift. Their mind feels quieter. Not perfectly calm, just quieter. Focus becomes easier. Conversations feel more engaging. Reading feels less mentally exhausting. Music sounds richer. Simple tasks stop feeling emotionally painful. This happens because your brain's reward sensitivity slowly begins normalizing again. Your nervous system is no longer being flooded with nonstop stimulation every waking hour. And something else changes too. You stop feeling mentally pulled in 10 directions every minute. People underestimate how exhausting constant micro-distractions really are. Every notification, every tab switch, every urge to check something. Tiny interruptions slowly drain mental energy all day long, and over time, many people start confusing overstimulation with anxiety. Because when your brain becomes addicted to constant input, silence starts feeling uncomfortable, sometimes even threatening. That's why many people instantly reach for their phone during emotionally uncomfortable moments. Not because they're weak, because distraction became emotional regulation. And this is where the deeper transformation starts happening. A successful dopamine detox is not just about reducing distractions. It changes self-perception. Every time you resist compulsive behavior intentionally, your brain collects evidence that you can direct your attention instead of constantly reacting automatically. That matters psychologically, because repeated self-betrayal damages self-trust. When you constantly tell yourself, just 5 more minutes, and lose control again, your brain notices. Eventually, your identity starts shifting. You begin seeing yourself as distracted, undisciplined, inconsistent. But the reverse is also true. Every small moment of intentional behavior rebuilds self-respect. That's why dopamine detoxes often improve confidence indirectly. Not fake confidence, behavioral confidence, confidence built from evidence. And no, this is not about becoming boring or removing enjoyment from your life forever. The goal is not to eliminate entertainment. The goal is to remove compulsiveness. A healthy brain should be able to enjoy stimulation without depending on it constantly, just to feel okay. And honestly, after a real dopamine reset, entertainment often becomes more enjoyable anyway, because your brain regains sensitivity again. Simple experiences feel richer. Time even starts feeling different. When you live in nonstop dopamine cycles, weeks blur together. But when your attention becomes more intentional, life often starts feeling slower and more real again. People notice details more, conversations feel more present, moments feel deeper. And in a world designed to hijack attention constantly, that becomes a serious advantage, because attention controls behavior, and behavior shapes life. So if your mind has been feeling scattered lately, maybe your brain isn't broken, maybe it's overloaded. And the good news is, brains adapt. That same neuroplasticity that allowed overstimulation to reshape your habits can also help you rebuild focus, calmness, motivation, and attention again. Not overnight, but gradually. And honestly, your attention may be one of the most valuable things you own now. Protect it carefully.